Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's the next day. I don't know what to tell you about what day it's going to be. I have starting to shape up, I think, in terms of which days I think it's going to be on. But this will be installment 2. Originally, I had a different thing in mind for installment 2, but now we forgot about this one. Installment 2 of the Pegasus Project catch-up game that we're playing. Trying to catch up with all of the reporting that's been done on this expansive story. First installment being, well, we'll say yesterday. I'm going to try and play these things 3 days in a row. And hinted, amazingly, at the end of last installment at what was going to be next, but then jumped ahead to what will now become the third installment. You'll see what that is, let's say, tomorrow. For today, installment 2 on the Pegasus Project, the one about Jamal Khashoggi's wife. Jamal Khashoggi's wife targeted with spyware before his death. The cell phones of murdered Saudi columnist's fiancé and associate hacked after his murder, says the clipped subhead here in the Washington Post. Headline, or rather byline here for Dana Priest, Soad McKennett, which I think we tried to get the pronunciation on last time, and Arthur Bouvart, B-O-U-V-A-R-T. Well, we did our best. Okay, this one, though, because it involves Khashoggi, datelined Ankara, Turkey. I hope I got that right. Turkey, I know I can say correctly. NSO Group's Pegasus spyware was used to secretly target the smartphones of the 2 women closest to murdered Saudi columnist Jamal Khashoggi, according to digital forensic analysis. The Android phone of his wife, Hanan Elatar, was targeted by a Pegasus user 6 months before his killing, but the analysis could not determine whether the hack was successful. The iPhone of his fiancée, it's a complicated relationship, I guess, his fiancée Hatice Cengiz, was penetrated by spyware days after the murder, the forensics showed. Their cell phone numbers appeared on a list of more than 50,000 numbers that are concentrated in countries known to spy on their citizens and also known to have been NSO clients, as we explained, or was explained to us last time. Another of Khashoggi's close associates was successfully hacked after the journalist's murder. The two other associates and 2 senior Turkish officials involved in his homicide investigation appear on the list as well. NSO executives have asserted that its spyware was not used to monitor Khashoggi or his family, but a Pegasus user sent texts to Elatar, an Egyptian flight attendant Khashoggi fell in love with and eventually married, with links that could have implanted spyware. The user twice masqueraded as her sister. The texts were sent November 2017 and again in April of 2018, 6 months before Khashoggi's murder on October 2nd, 2018, according to a digital forensic examination conducted by Amnesty International's Security Lab. She has no memory of clicking on the links. Because she was using an Android phone, Amnesty's researcher was unable to determine whether the device was successfully penetrated. Unlike iPhones, Androids do not log the kinds of information required for Amnesty's detective work. During the months when the targeting occurred, Elatar and Khashoggi were talking and texting multiple times a week, she said in recent interviews. They also met in person 3 times in various locations. Khashoggi taught her to use various apps because he thought switching among them would help thwart surveillance, she said. Jamal warned me before that this might happen, said Elatar, and I guess now I'm switching over to this other pronunciation of it, but it's just written as capital E-L-A-T-R, not 2 words, Elatar, but I don't know how else you would pronounce that as 1 word, but that's our best guess. So again, she says, Jamal warned me before that this might happen, said Elatar, who married Khashoggi in an Islamic wedding in June 2018 in Alexandria, Virginia, not Alexandria, Egypt, Alexandria, Virginia, near where he lived in self-imposed exile. It makes me believe they are aware of everything that happened to Jamal through me, Elater said. She kept her phone, Elater said she kept her phone on the tea table in their living room in Virginia while he talked to colleagues overseas. Pegasus can steal the phone's content and turn on its microphone for real-time monitoring, according to cybersecurity experts. After Khashoggi's murder, someone using Pegasus targeted Cengiz's iPhone. That's the fiancé. She had accompanied him to the gates of the Saudi consulate in Istanbul as he went to pick up documents in October of 2018. Her cell phone was breached just 4 days after Khashoggi's murder, and then 5 times in the days following that, according to the Amnesty analysis. The analysis could not determine what was taken from the phone or whether any audio surveillance took place. At the time, the two women did not know about each other. I suppose I might have kept it that way too. When Cengiz, and that's my guess at her pronunciation, Cengiz, but she's Turkish, so I'm going with that. When Cengiz was told of the breach in an interview in Istanbul, she replied, "I was expecting that, but I am upset. I want to be a normal person, as anyone. All these things make me sad and scared. My phone could be attacked again in the future, and I feel I don't have any way to protect myself from this." Whether Khashoggi's cell phone was also hacked is not known. He left his phone with Cengiz when he entered the consulate. She gave it to Turkish authorities. Authorities have kept it and declined to say whether it had been hacked, citing the ongoing homicide investigation. Agnes Callamard, the former United Nations rapporteur who investigated the murder and is now Secretary General of Amnesty International, said the use of Pegasus against Khashoggi's inner circle and investigators indicates an attempt to be on top of what may be revealed by the Turkish investigation. All right, got to scroll now through their their visualization element here, in which they display a picture of Jamal Khashoggi. And note that 3 cell phones of those in Khashoggi's inner circle were targeted by Pegasus. Here are the people: Hanan El-Ater, an Egyptian woman who married Khashoggi in June of 2018, 4 months before his murder. Boy, he's marrying everybody. Her cell phone was secretly targeted by someone using Pegasus, but it could not be determined whether the phone was successfully penetrated. Then comes Hatice Cengiz, Khashoggi's Turkish fiancée. She accompanied him to the gates of the Saudi consulate in Istanbul when he went to pick up documents. Her cell phone was successfully breached just days after his murder, and then 5 times in the days following that. Now another person comes up here, no photo attached here. Wada Kanfar, another Khashoggi associate whose phone was penetrated with Pegasus. According to the forensics, he is a former Al Jazeera journalist. "I felt my phone, or Hatice's phone, might have been hacked because some of the conversations we had about Jamal's disappearance came out in public during the first days," he said. And now the story continues. This article is part of a global investigation. Just as a reminder, we heard a little bit about this last time, organized by the Paris-based journalism nonprofit Forbidden Stories, into the use of NSO's Pegasus spyware against journalists, civic activists, business executives, and political opponents. The Israeli firm says it licenses its spyware only to vetted governments and does not operate the software that its clients use under a license. NSO says its spyware was supposed to be deployed against terrorists and criminals. It says it operates ethically and monitors its clients for human rights abuses. The investigation by 17 media organizations, including The Post, relied on interviews and digital analysis of 67 iPhones that appeared on a list of more than 50,000 numbers that are concentrated in countries known to spy on their citizens and also known to have been NSO clients. The list does not name the clients, nor does it indicate whether the phones were targeted or surveilled. Amnesty and Forbidden Stories had access to these records, which were subjected to further analysis by the media partners. The company denied that its technology was used against Khashoggi or his associates. As NSO has previously stated, our technology was not associated in any way with the heinous murder of Jamal Khashoggi, NSO said in a statement. This includes listening, monitoring, tracking, or collecting information. We previously investigated this claim immediately after the heinous murder, they like saying heinous, which again is being made without validation. The second Khashoggi associate whose phone was penetrated with Pegasus, according to the forensics, was the aforementioned in the visualization that they stuck in the middle of this thing, Wada Khanfar. By the way, that's W-A-D-A-H and Khanfar, K-H-A-N-F-A-R, a former Al Jazeera journalist. I felt my phone, right, here's the quote again, I felt my phone or Hatice's might have been hacked because there were details of the conversations that weren't given out in public that ended up in the reports, right? The Khashoggi associates whose phone numbers appear on the list, but whose smartphones were not forensically examined, are Turkish journalist Turan Kislaki, or Kislachi, perhaps? I don't know. Not great with Turkish, but and an exiled human rights defender in London who spoke on condition of anonymity. Perfect. I can grant them all anonymity, so I don't have to try to pronounce the names. My goodness. But this other exiled human rights defender in London speaking on condition of anonymity because he feared for his safety. Two Turkish officials deeply involved in the Khashoggi homicide investigation also appear on the list that contain the numbers of the two women closest to Khashoggi. That is unusual, don't you think? Irfan Fidan, then the prosecutor, and Yasin Aktay, A-K-T-A, Aktay perhaps, an influential member of the ruling conservative Islamist party and advisor to the president. They declined to submit their phones to forensic analysis. Only one of the Turkish officials, Aktay, agreed to be interviewed. Aktay said that shortly after Khashoggi's murder, Turkish intelligence officials informed him that they had discovered that his new iPhone had been hacked and that he had been under surveillance. I was warned by someone from the Turkish security authorities that they had detected someone trying to hack into my phones back then, he said. They didn't say who tried to hack my phone. However, they said that there are many such attempts. They also said that the simplest precaution I should take in this regard would be to change my phone device. So I changed my phone device. But I always saw the possibility of such a leak. Aktay said he was not told who did the hacking. The intelligence officials declined to comment for this article. And then here they insert the reminder of how Pegasus works. You actually heard it in the first installment. You'll hear it again in the third. You'll recall that it can target people, sometimes by implanting even zero-click hacks that can implant themselves on the phone without the user doing anything. And then, of course, target, infect, when the spyware captures and copies the phone's most basic functions. NSA marketing materials show recording from the cameras and microphones and also collecting location data, call logs, and contacts, all possible. And track, the implant secretly reports that information to an operative who can use it to map out sensitive details of the victims' lives. Okay, how Pegasus works: target, infect, and track. Aktay said authorities then gave him special security precautions, including a bodyguard and a car equipped with police lights and a handheld remote-controlled siren. They also gave Cengiz a bodyguard and a car for her protection after she began receiving death threats on social media, she said. Aktay still has a bodyguard who recently drove him and two journalists at 120 miles per hour to the Ankara airport. Is that normal? Okay, I don't know. As the car barreled down the highway, he was asked about the excessive speed and danger. It's the best way, Aktay said. It's very hard. Well, the English is a little rough here. It's very hard to have an assassination plan when you go fast. I guess that would make things difficult. Khashoggi gave Aktay's name to Cengiz and others as his emergency contact. Aktay believes that when he became a vocal critic of the Saudi government after the murder, the monarchy became interested in what they believed he was planning against them. The U.S. intelligence community concluded that the murder could not have taken place without the prior knowledge of Saudi Arabia's young, iron-fisted leader, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Aktay said he believes he was targeted because he continues to write about Khashoggi and to send his writings to thousands of readers. They are trying to kill even the ghost of Jamal Khashoggi, he said, referring to the Saudi government. Calamard said the Saudi government saw Turkey as the heart of what they needed to control. In the current Cold War power struggle in the Middle East, Turkey, Qatar, and Iran are aligned against, this is interesting, against Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, and Bahrain. Turkish President, I knew this had to come up, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, maybe we did it right, himself a frequent jailer of journalists and bloggers critical of his rule, nevertheless befriended Khashoggi because of the way they've lined up politically against the Saudis. That is very interesting. The disruption in the lives of the two women in Khashoggi's life shows the impact that even the fear of spying can have. Both of them had fulfilling, independent lives before they began a romantic relationship with him. Yikes, that's not so good sounding for him. Both now live in hiding and have been forsaken by friends who fear for their own safety because they know authorities can link them via their phones and through social media, texts, and other communications. Elater's life was endangered after she began dating the columnist in March of 2018. In April, authorities in the UAE stopped her at the airport, where they confiscated her phone, detained her, and interrogated her several times. Later, they twice placed her under house arrest for weeks. She said they wrongly portrayed his efforts to create an independent media organization as the formation of a secret network to overthrow autocrats in the Middle East, which isn't a bad idea, but they're not going to tolerate it, obviously. Elater lives in hiding in the Washington area and has applied for political asylum. She said she fears most for family members, some of whom have been interrogated by UAE and Egyptian authorities. I just want them to leave me in peace. Please leave me in peace, she said. Cengiz was a scholar who conducted field work in the Middle East before she met Khashoggi. Before I met him, I was living a really rich life, she said. I had many things to do every day. I became a working person. Now, she says, she can't return to her scholarship as a Persian Gulf expert. Now I cannot travel to any Arab country. Can you imagine that? I'm paying a price, but for what? She asked. Wow, all right. Well, as a matter of fact, that's actually the end of the story. And now I recall why it was that I skipped over it. I said, actually, I looked at it and it was fairly short. And I didn't feel like that was really enough to do an entire substitute show. But then I went on to the next installment, but the next installment runs a bit long. I'm thinking on the fly here. So you're going to hear me now formulate what we're going to do with this. I might just combine this with the third installment and make just one long second installment. That's probably the best thing to do. And now, through the magic of technology, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, make it happen. So, would you believe I've got yet another Pegasus project story for you. This one ran a few days after the initial installments and is dated July 21st, 2021, the others having been published a few days before. The title, A Princess Raced to Escape Dubai's Powerful Ruler. Then, her phone appeared on the list. This is rather intriguing and gives us a guess at what's going on in terms of the usage of this program in Middle Eastern dictatorships. The subheader here says, in the days before commandos dragged Princess Latifa from her getaway yacht, in the Indian Ocean, her number was added to a list that includes targets of a powerful spyware, a new investigation shows. We know which investigation that is. The writer in this case Drew Harwell, again, this time printed in the Washington Post. The princess, a real princess, the princess had been careful, so she left her phone in the cafe's bathroom. Okay. She'd seen what her father could do to women who tried to escape. She hid in the trunk of a black Audi Q7, then jumped into a Jeep Wrangler as her getaway crew raced that morning from the glittering skyscrapers of Dubai to the rough waves of the Arabian Sea. They launched a dinghy from a beach in neighboring Oman, then 16 miles out switched to water scooters. That's a lot of effort. By sunset, they'd reached their idling yacht, the Nostromo, and began sailing toward the Sri Lankan coast. I think maybe part of the mistake might have been getting on the yacht, which seems, a little more trackable than some of the other methods of escape here. Princess Latifa bint Mohammed Al Maktoum, the 32-year-old daughter of Dubai's fearsome ruler, believed she was closer than ever to political asylum and, for the first time, real freedom in the United States, members of her escape team said in interviews. But there was one threat she hadn't planned for: the spyware tool Pegasus, which her father's government was known to have used to secretly hack and track people's phones. Leaked data shows that by the time armed commandos stormed the yacht 8 days into her escape, operatives had entered the numbers of her closest friends and allies into a system that had also been used for selecting Pegasus surveillance targets. "Shoot me here! Don't take me back!" she'd screamed as soldiers dragged her off the boat, roughly 30 miles from the shore, according to a fact-finding judgment by the United Kingdom's High Court of Justice. Then she disappeared. Latifa's failed 2018 escape from her father, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the United Arab Emirates Prime Minister, Vice President, and Minister of Defense, sparked outrage and gave life to a troubling mystery. How, given all her precautions, had the princess been found? An investigation by the Washington Post and an international consortium of news organizations may offer critical new insight. Latifa's number and those of her friends appear on a list that includes phones targeted for surveillance with Pegasus, the hacking tool from the Israeli spyware giant NSO Group, amid the sprint to track her down. Numbers for Latifa and her friends were added to the list in the hours and days after she went missing in February 2018, the investigation shows. The UAE was believed to have been an NSO client at the time, according to evidence discovered by the research group Citizen Lab. And if I'm not mistaken, I just, like my speculation the other day about the weird relationship, the weird triumvirate relationship. I guess there's really at least a fourth side to the relationship between Netanyahu as the Israeli prime minister, and I guess maybe still Jared Kushner and others in the Trump administration, and the Saud family and the Saudish regime running their country, but also the UAE as well. Of course, they're all fairly close. We've heard more about what is Mohammed bin Zayed bin Zayed, MBZ, in the UAE than we have about this particular guy. But it reminds me that one of the big triumphs in the progress towards so-called Middle East peace negotiations, or a Middle East peace deal, was a normalization of relations between Israel and UAE. And it always struck me as kind of weird, Saudi Arabia as well, UAE, that they don't share a border, so it's not quite the same sort of deal as striking a peace deal with Egypt or Jordan or Lebanon or Syria, for that matter. But there were open hostilities, but they weren't the same as the traditional border antagonisms that have marked the saga of Israel here. But I did wonder whether there was anything else, weird about the Israel UAE, because they had their own strange deal, and then part of the deal was direct flights between the two countries, and it was just kind of a strange offering for a peace deal where we're traditionally talking about settling an active state of war between two states. And the UAE thing seemed much more commercial and transactional, and I wonder whether it also included some of this. Again, the Israelis should have been concerned about the national security implications of selling software like this to Middle Eastern Arab states, dictatorships in particular, but any of them really. But apparently they weren't. Anyway, let's pick up with the story again. It is unknown what role, if any, the phone hacking software ultimately played in the princess's capture. Their phones were not available for forensic examination, and the list does not identify who put the numbers on it or how many were targeted or compromised. In multiple statements, NSO has denied that the list was purely for surveillance purposes. It is not a list of targets or potential targets of NSO's customers, and your repeated reliance on this list and association of the people on this list as potential surveillance targets is false and misleading, NSO said in a letter Tuesday. But when Amnesty International's security lab examined data from 67 phones whose numbers were on the list to search for forensic evidence of Pegasus spyware, 37 of those phones showed traces, including 23 phones that had been successfully infected and 14 others that showed signs of attempted targeting. The forensic analyses of the 37 smartphones also showed that many displayed a tight correlation between timestamps on the list and the beginning of surveillance, sometimes as little as a few seconds. So, strong circumstantial evidence, if nothing else, right? In the year after Latifah's chase, operatives appear to have entered numbers onto the list for another Dubai princess, one of the Sheikh's 6 wives, Haya bint Hussein, who had voiced concerns about Latifah's confinement before fleeing with her 2 young children to London. Princess Haya, her half-sister, her assistants, her horse trainer, that's the life they lead, and members of her legal and security teams, in case the horse trainer wasn't enough for you, all had their phones entered onto the list in early 2019, both in the days before and in the weeks after she, too, fled Dubai. The investigation shows. Did she take the horse trainer with her? We don't really know. Around that time, Haya later told a British court she'd faced threats of exile to a desert prison and twice discovered a gun in her bed. An NSO attorney and the company, quote, said the company, does not have insight into the specific intelligence activities of its customers, and that the list of numbers could have been used, quote, for many legitimate and entirely proper purposes, having nothing to do with surveillance. It's just, I don't know, Jeffrey Epstein's black book, perhaps. But a person, I guess that's not legitimate, a person familiar with the operations of NSO who spoke to the Post on condition of anonymity to discuss internal operations says the company terminated its contract with Dubai within the last year after it learned of the princess's surveillance and other human rights concerns. So those reports were concerning enough to NSO for them to trigger their ability to cancel contracts over human rights concerns. But I don't know. For some reason, the Post reaching this conclusion is inappropriate and very upsetting to them, apparently. NSO's co-founder and chief executive, Shalev Julio, remember him with an H, said on Sunday that he was disturbed by reports of journalists and others being hacked with his company's software. Okay. And he promised investigations. He said the company had terminated 2 contracts in the past 12 months because of human rights concerns. I guess 50% of them were Dubai. NSO said in a Transparency and Responsibility report last month that the company had disconnected 5 clients from Pegasus since 2016, following investigations of misuse, including one unnamed client that a company probe last year revealed had used the system to target a protected individual, whatever that might mean. Latifah's hunters had many options for pursuit and interception, and some of the princess's supporters have suggested that the Nostromo's crew members made tactical errors, including sending online messages during the chase that could have given their location away. That would be pretty dumb, but they might not have known how much was at stake. But I don't know. I guess they probably had some inkling that something weird was going on if they were sailing to Sri Lanka for whatever reason. But the records show that the phones were added to the list at critical moments in the search, underscoring how a surveillance tool that NSO says is deployed to help governments protect innocents from terror and crime can be abused. The Pegasus software allows operatives to track a hacked phone's location, read its messages, and turn its cameras and microphones into live streaming spy devices. There's a reminder here, which we read the other day, of how Pegasus works, the target, infect, track explanation. Now, back to the story. Forbidden Stories, you remember them? The Paris-based journalism nonprofit oversaw the investigation, just again a reminder of the methodology, which they called the Pegasus Project, and the news organizations worked collaboratively to conduct further analysis and reporting. Journalists from the British newspaper The Guardian and the German newspaper, Süddeutsche Zeitung, contributed reporting for this article. Okay. Officials with Dubai and the UAE, a close ally of the United States, did not respond to requests for comment, but have previously declined, saying the episodes are family matters. But I guess if your family is the government of a country, I guess you get away with that. The Sheikh has argued that the assault on the Nostromo rescued his daughter from a high ransom kidnapping, though Latifah had pre-recorded a video explaining that she'd chosen to run because of years of oppression and abuse. The Sheikh's personal attorneys in the UK and Germany sent letters this month denying his involvement in any attempted hacks. Officials with the Sheikh's Dubai ruler's court, he's got his own court, have previously said in statements that they are, quote, deeply saddened by the continued media speculation, and that Latifah is, quote, safe and in the loving care of her family. Although, we've seen how much Mohammed bin Salman has expressed his love for his family, imprisoning them in the Ritz Hotel. It was the Ritz, but they were imprisoned. And some of them died, I think. So, there's good and bad, you could say. All right, from the outside, Latifah seemed to enjoy a life of unimaginable affluence. The Emirati princess lived in a palace compound in the Emirates' biggest city and appeared free to enjoy wild extravagances, including riding champion racehorses and leaping out of planes, which I assume means parachuting, but, I guess it could mean anything. Her father, one of the Persian Gulf's most powerful autocrats, had presided over Dubai's transformation into a capitalist playground for the ultra-rich, famous for showpieces such as the world's tallest tower, the Burj Khalifa, and palm-shaped islands visible from space. When not commanding his empire, the Sheikh had become a star in the world of thoroughbred horse racing, owning one of its most prestigious breeding operations, and spent heavily to portray himself as a progressive crusader for women's rights and a family man to his 25 children, 3 of whom are named Latifah, which I assume comes from like 3 different wives, perhaps, but maybe not. Maybe it's just a very, very popular name, but there you go. What a progressive crusader for women's rights. Take it or leave it. He also wrote books, maybe, such as Reflections on Happiness and Positivity, and poetry, which he posted to his 5.7 million follower Instagram account. What progressive modern guy. That's true. It seems like pretty tapped into the modern thing. And I guess if you had billions of dollars and maybe if you had 25 children, multiple wives, and basically anything you said was law in the country where you lived, it might not make a great how-to guide, but I don't doubt the genuineness of his reflections on happiness and positivity. He was undoubtedly a happy and positive guy when it came to, living his life and getting his way. So, I don't know that anyone of us would be able to emulate it, but it's probably genuine. Like I say, this is the kind of person who might be an early riser, right? The whole world revolves around you getting your wishes, and money is never an object. All right, I'll get up early. To Latifah, her father's public persona, though, was all a lie, she would say in the video. Her life had been rigorously scheduled and restricted. She could not drive or travel, and her every movement was tracked by her father's office. Her siblings, she said, lived similar lives of mistreatment or neglect. There is no justice here. They don't care, especially if you're a female. Your life is so disposable, she said. All my father cares about is his reputation. He will kill people to protect it. He's even burned down houses to hide the evidence. Sounds dangerous. In the summer of 2000, Latifah's older sister, Shamsa, then a mother figure to her, ran away from the Sheikh's stables during a family holiday in the UK. For weeks, she lived as a fugitive, sleeping in a London hostel and staving off loneliness by calling friends back home, bad idea, according to Latifah's video and the High Court judgment released last year. Soon after, Shamsa was abducted off the street in Cambridge, flown via helicopter to France, and shuffled onto a private jet back to Dubai, the judgment found. Latifah said in the video that one of Shamsa's friends' phones had been bugged, allowing her father to learn where she was. In a letter Shamsa sent to an immigration lawyer and cited by the British court, Shamsa said she'd been imprisoned and forcibly tranquilized. They have all the money, they have all the power. They think they can do anything, she wrote. She has not been seen since. So I guess they're basically able to do anything, including this. 2 years after Shamsa went missing, a distraught Latifah, then 16, attempted her own vanishing act. She'd naively believed, she said in the video, that she could just cross the border to Oman to find help, or at worst, get locked up with Shamsa, who would at least then know she has somebody with her. When the border guards caught her, Latifah said, she was returned to her father's compound, confined alone in a windowless room and subjected to, quote, constant torture. Your father told us to beat you until we kill you, she recalled her captors telling her. I didn't know when one day ended and the next began. After 3 years and 4 months, she was freed. The High Court judge wrote later that she marveled then at the strangeness of ordinary things. Car rides as fast as a roller coaster. The bliss of a bath. She appeared to live a quiet life, spending her days at the horse stables and training in the dance fighting style of capoeira with Tina, it's a Finnish instructor. There's 2 I's in Tina, and Jauhianen is my best guess. Is that like a Finnish for Johansson? Jauhiainen. It might as well be, I don't know what, Albanian. But thanks, Finland. Good job breaking your forests, though. That seems to be working for you pretty well. Finnish names, I think, are pretty much beyond me. One of many languages like that. But Latifah never stopped dreaming of escape. By 2017, her Finnish capoeira instructor, it's easier to say capoeira and maybe get that right than to try to say this name again, said in interviews with a Guardian reporter in April, she and the princess had begun drawing up a daring plan, recruiting Christian Elombo, that's Yohannen's friend and fellow trainer, and, boy, they're really trying to get me here, Hervé Jaubert, a French businessman who'd fled Dubai after an embezzlement conviction and moved to Florida, where he built submarines. I don't even live in the same planet as these guys. I cannot believe. Built submarines? I don't know. Maybe kidnap all of them. I don't know whether I should feel bad for these people or not. All right. Latifa committed her entire life savings of more than $300,000 toward the plan, Yohannan, maybe, said in interviews. And I have a feeling that she had more than $300,000 to her name, but, maybe she doesn't have control of the money. That's what she was able to squirrel away over the years. And as a last resort, she recorded the 40-minute video in Yohannen's apartment, scheduling it to post online if their bid collapsed. Okay, well, that part is smart. If you're watching this, Latifa said, either I'm dead or I'm in a very, very, very bad situation. By the time the leaked records show Latifa's number was added to the list, she and Yohannan had already ditched their phones in the bathroom of La Serre, a Parisian cafe in downtown Dubai, and begun their doomed voyage across the Arabian Sea. Maybe that made some sense, right? To just chuck the phones. Someone then added numbers for Juan Mayer, M-A-Y-E-R, like Oscar's brother, I guess. An aerial photographer who had often recorded Latifa's skydives. It's another sort of great career choice, I guess. I'm moving to Dubai to be an aerial photographer where I can videotape the princess's skydiving and hang out with capoeira instructors. Okay, who else is involved in this? Also, numbers for Linda Bouchiki, I'm guessing, Bouchikhi, in case you want to hire any of these people to teach you capoeira or skydive with you. But this woman is an event manager who had served as Latifa's officially sanctioned chaperone. I don't know, man. Don't take that job. And Sioned, I don't know, Sioned, Taylor is easy to read, another friend and chaperone whose LinkedIn profile says she worked then as a personal assistant for a member of the ruling family. Taylor, through an attorney, declined to comment. Meyer and Bouchiki did not respond to requests for comment. I'm beginning to see how this whole crazy thing kind of comes together. Like, I'm just thinking of this sort of seedy situation, and I mean, maybe it looks very glamorous and on the up and up, but just being hired as an official chaperone for a princess in Dubai, and I'm sure your life will be very luxurious and you'll be paid outrageous amounts of money, but you're responsible to this top government official and autocrat, and in exchange for lots and lots of money and living in a capitalist playground with a princess, you're expected to report on her whereabouts and make sure she doesn't escape at any point. And it's just kind of like, don't take that job. That's all I'm saying. I mean, everybody wants money, but you're really asking for it. Aboard the Nostromo, a two-masted U.S.-flagged sailing yacht chartered for luxury cruises around Southeast Asia, the escape team was growing anxious, Yohannan said. Now, I looked up the Nostromo, by the way, and all the pictures I saw of it were that it was flagged in the island of Guernsey, off the coast of the UK, but that can change at any time. But again, weird world where super yachts change hands all the time, and if it's your super yacht, why is it chartered? I guess the idle super yacht that you're not allowed on because your father thinks you'll escape, you might as well charter it out for, what did they say? Luxury cruises around Southeast Asia. All right, well, the plan was to cross the Indian Ocean, disembark in Sri Lanka with prearranged visas, and hop a flight to the United States, of which there are lots, right? You might have started from somewhere else, but I guess if you're escaping, you can't be too choosy. To pass the time, they watched bad movies, could have brought good ones, and sent messages using a satellite internet connection that Jalbert had pledged was secure. Just don't. Anyway, but when they lost contact with Elambo, who, unbeknown to them, had, after piloting the dinghy back to shore, been arrested in Oman, the team abruptly steered toward a backup dock on India's coast for fear they'd been compromised. That's a good thought, Johanan said. So, soon an Indian Coast Guard boat and low-flying plane began shadowing them because an unknown vessel is approaching their shore and it's gigantic and they might not know what's going on, or they might have been alerted. I don't know to who was on board. Then, one night, as they prepared for bed, the team heard heavy boots on the upper deck, Johanan said. Their cabins suddenly filled with smoke. An Indian Special Forces unit, backed by helicopters, military boats, and a squad of UAE soldiers, had blitzed the Nostromo, shouting Latifa's name. Locking herself in a bathroom, the princess sent Radha Sterling, head of the London advocacy group detained in Dubai, a distress call over WhatsApp. Please help me. Please help, there's men outside. As the team watched, Johanan said, the commandos tied Latifa's hands behind her back and dragged her off the yacht, their guns' laser sights shimmering through the darkness. In the week afterward, Latifa's supporters posted her last video online and filed missing persons reports with international law enforcement agencies, including the FBI. Jalbert, Johanan, and Elambo were questioned for days in Dubai and then released, with no idea where Latifa was being held. And all the while, the leaked data shows, operatives continued to add the princess's allies to the list. In the years since, the escape team has struggled to piece together what went wrong. Johanan has questioned the yacht's satellite uplink, and in a report this month, USA Today cited unnamed people knowledgeable about the operation who said the FBI had assisted with what they believed was a kidnapping investigation by pulling location data from the satellite internet provider, Rhode Island-based KVH Industries. The FBI and KVH declined to comment. But the yacht also carried 2 burner phones, according to Johanan, which Jalbert had argued were bugged. Latifa had used them to send emails, seek help on Instagram, and exchange messages through WhatsApp, the Facebook-owned messaging firm that sued NSO in 2019, alleging the company helped spy on its users. Oh, they don't like that, eh? I guess we now know what bothers Facebook. She had also communicated, Johanan said, with Taylor, whose phone, the leaked data show, had also been added to the list before the assault. So just basically, you kind of have to go incommunicado is your best bet. Not assuring you that that will work if you are a princess thinking of escaping, but it would be a better idea. Princess Haya had for months gone along with... Oh, I'm sorry. We're on to another story here, or another episode in this story. This one subtitled Exposed. We're now back to Princess Haya, who had for months gone along with her husband's assertion that Latifa was the mentally unstable victim of a criminal plot. But as Latifa's video gained attention, she began to openly question the official line. In late 2018, Haya arranged for a doctor and psychiatrist to see Latifa at her guarded villa. When they found nothing wrong, she visited Latifa herself. Latifa, Haya would tell the High Court, appeared pale and forlorn, caged in a bedroom, quote, akin to a prison. I don't know. Maybe. Sobbing that she would do anything to take it all back. Haya, the daughter of Jordan's late King Hussein, had for years boosted the Sheikh's image in elite social circles by defying the expectations of feminine royalty. The Oxford graduate had become the first woman in Jordan licensed to drive heavy trucks, and in 2000, the first Arab woman to jump horses in the Summer Olympics. But their marriage was unraveling behind closed doors. They hadn't enjoyed an intimate relationship together, that's in quotes, for some time, the court filings say, and Haya had recently pursued a romance with one of her bodyguards. It's not likely to help you, but okay. I understand there's problems. Haya's involvement in Latifa's case, including asking a former United Nations commissioner to check on her, had pushed their bond to a breaking point. The sheikh ordered her to stay out of it, she told the court. Then she learned that her husband's agents were arranging for their 11-year-old daughter to marry the then 33-year-old Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. That seems bad. 11. Now, I don't know when they were going to have the wedding, but there's an age difference, and I don't know. I mean, it's dynastic marriages. It might not have been a serious thing. There might not have been anything approaching a Western understanding of a marriage planned between them. But, you know, if you're Westernizing, don't do this. But then again, if you've got $1 bazillion and you run the world, you're not going to be listening to me. I mean, you still shouldn't do it, but I'm not saying that makes it any better. It just means you're probably going to get away with it. Wow. Okay. I don't even know how to continue after this. So there's MBS, Mr. Bonesaw, then at the time 33 years old, arranging to marry the 11-year-old daughter of this sheikh from the UAE. She found notes, Haya says, warning, "Your daughter is ours," and a pistol in her bed. One of the sheikh's helicopter pilots landed outside her home with orders to fly her to a desert prison, according to the British court judgment. The sheikh, she said later, laughed it off as a mistake. Oh boy, so she's managed to stay out of the helicopter. And what's this all about? Ha ha ha, it's just a joke or a mistake or something like that. Boy, I'll tell you, I mean, her life probably seemed charmed right up to that point where she allowed herself to get involved with the UAE. She's doing fine in Jordan. She's going to Oxford. She's a big deal and a celebrity in her own right and has lots of freedom in Jordan. And she's just, all right, I should just marry into even more money? Sure. I'm sure nothing bad could come of that, but who knows? I'm sure he presented as a perfectly fine kind of guy at the time. The sheikh had also, she learned later, secretly divorced her on her 20th anniversary, or rather on the 20th anniversary of her father's death, interestingly enough, a date, she told the court, he'd chosen to maximize the insult. And I guess it worked. 1 year after Latifa's failed breakout, Haya staged her own. She flew with her daughter and 9-year-old son to London, where she'd secured a post in the Jordanian embassy on the belief its diplomatic immunity could keep her safe, she told the court. Okay, interesting thought here, and let's see. I'm just looking at the picture that illustrates this. I guess there's a picture here of Sheikh Mohammed and Princess Haya's, with his and Princess Haya's daughter, Jalila, I guess. That's the girl who at age 11 had seen this marriage arranged for her. And I don't know how old she is in this picture, but obviously a young kid at the time this picture is taken too. All right, so where were we here? So she thought she would be safe if she ran to the Jordanian embassy in London. But operatives had already begun attempting to trail her, the leaked data suggests. The phones of top officials at Quest, a British private security firm that had advised the princess for years, had been added to the list. Martin Smith, the company's chief executive, and Ross Smith, its director of investigations and intelligence. So, too, had numbers for Haya's personal assistant, the executive assistant of her Dubai household, and John Gosden, a horse trainer who had worked with Haya's Colts. As the Sheikh's lawyers pushed the High Court to order his children returned to Dubai, the leaked records show that numbers were added for Haya, her half-sister, Princess Aisha bint Hussein, a member of Haya's legal team advising her on the custody dispute, and Shimon Cohen, founder of a public relations firm that had worked with Haya's private security firm. Haya, her legal team, the Quest officials, Cohen, and Gosden declined to comment. I would too. Princess Aisha did not respond to requests for comment. In a possible episode of internal paranoia, the data shows, someone also added to the list a number for Stuart Page, a private investigator who had long worked on the Sheikh's behalf. Page confirmed the number was his, but declined to comment. I guess just in case he flipped and switched sides and tried to help Haya. Maybe they imagined that that was going to be the case. Around that time, the Sheikh published a poem, You Lived, You Died, that Haya read as a veiled threat. I exposed you in your games. I have the evidence that convicts you of what you have done. What a nice poem that is. But the custody battle had also exposed unanswered questions about the missing princesses. In a statement to the British court, the Sheikh said that Latifa was safe in her, quote, rescue, after her rescue, and that Shamsa had been still a child when she fled at age 19. The other one was getting married at 11, but whatever. The Sheikh and Shamsa's mother had jointly decided to organize a search for her, he wrote, and when she was found, I remember our feeling of overwhelming relief. Both women, the Sheikh told the court, declined to be interviewed. Last year, shortly after former President Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka posed for photos with the Sheikh during a Dubai Women's Equality Conference, the court ruled that the Sheikh had orchestrated the intimidation campaign against Haya and the abductions of Shamsa and Latifa. So, okay, there's a bit of hypocrisy going on there, perhaps, but who'll hold him to account? The Trumps? I don't think so. The judge, Andrew McFarlane, said virtually all of Haya's allegations were substantiated, save for the, quote, hearsay regarding the Saudi crown prince. Saudi authorities did not respond to requests for comment. As for Latifa, McFarlane wrote, she had been plainly desperate to extricate herself from her family and prepared to undertake a dangerous mission to do so. For the princess's supporters, the judgment was only a symbolic victory. Though Haya and her children remain in London, the custody battle is ongoing, and the ruling changed little about Shamsa and Latifa's precarious state in Dubai. Latifa's friends earlier this year gave the BBC several videos that she had secretly recorded on a contraband phone in which she said she was being held hostage, quote, that she was hostage, in a villa by guards who had told her she, quote, would never see the sun again, which is no mean feat in Dubai, I think. Every day I am worried about my safety and my life, she said. Her videos and messages stopped abruptly last year. In April, 2 months after the BBC report, UN officials demanded that the UAE provide evidence that she was alive and well. Then, suddenly, in May, after months of silence, Latifa reappeared. In 3 photos posted to Instagram over a 4-day span, Latifa was spotted having a, quote, lovely evening in a Dubai mall, eating, quote, lovely food near the Burj Khalifa, and, quote, enjoying dinner with a Dubai friend. 2 of the photos had been posted by Syed, however you pronounce that, I really would love to know, by Taylor, remember? And one also showed Linda Buciki. Numbers for both women had been added to the list before the raid on the Nostromo, the data shows. Latifa posted no photos of her own. Taylor declined to comment. The law firm Taylor Wessing, which says it represents Latifa, also began sending letters demanding that Latifah's friends and members of the advocacy campaign Free Latifah stop talking about her in the media, saying their comments had caused the princess distress. In a statement attributed to Latifah, the firm reported that she said she can, quote, travel where I want, adding, quote, I hope now that I can live my life in peace. A lawyer at the firm said Latifah had declined a request from the Post to be interviewed by phone or video, either on or off the record. The lawyer said Latifah had read a Post reporter's questions, but did not want to talk about her past and sought only to move on with a quiet life. The lawyer declined to provide any details of their legal retainer, citing client confidentiality. I mean, it could be anything. I mean, surely that would be the sort of answers you would expect if she was getting none of those messages or was in fact dead or whatever, and the government of Dubai was simply answering in her stead. On the other hand, if you survived all of this and you were offered the chance, look, if you just quietly live out your life here and never try to escape again and don't talk to any of these people and don't give them anything bad about me, we'll let you live out your life quietly back in with some of the luxury you're used to. Not your freedom, but the luxury. I could see somebody saying, you know what? I'm not looking to crusade for anybody else here. It's my life. I'm doomed to this. I might as well just, live my life out here and just don't make waves. Maybe that's not a bad deal. That could be the truth too. Last month, Taylor posted a photo from an airport terminal. Latifah held what appeared to be boarding documents. Taylor gripped an iPhone. Great European holiday with Latifah, said the caption with a smiley face. We're having fun exploring. No other photos of Latifah have emerged since. And here they are in the airport wearing masks and allegedly at the airport in Madrid. All right. Well, there you have it. I guess there was at some point some other reporting saying that another photo had been posted, in fact, but I guess that wasn't the case. And the correction says that a previous photo showed Princess Latifah's cousin, who is also named Latifah, in a show jumping championship. So easy mistake to make, I guess. That's the end of this particular story. It's, kind of scary and weird, and it's kind of amazing how it's easily believable. Both versions of the story are easily believable, that she's not posting any of this stuff at all, and the government is just doing it to make us believe she's decided to quietly enjoy her life and live it out under the control of Dubai's ruling family and government, or that she really has made that decision because, what's at stake here? She's, she could either stand on principle and probably get herself killed, or say, I'm not messing up anybody else's life here. It's just my own. Maybe it's best if I just quietly sit here through the rest of this and not make waves anymore. And maybe I will get an occasional vacation to Spain or something like that. I don't know what to believe about that, but I do believe that there's some scary stuff going on. And I feel like, I guess they've presented a good enough circumstantial case here in the Pegasus Project for us to believe that, yes, it's very likely that the governments who have access to this Pegasus software are misusing it. I guess what our definition of misusing it would be. But then again, where the line between the ruling family and the government is blurred, and anything you say goes, I guess you could make anything look enough like legitimate national security to be believed by NSO. Or even if you can't, if you don't make it look like what a Western conception of national security is, I suppose there's always this. how many clients does NSO have, and what happens if one of their major sources of income dries up because NSO sticks by its principles, when instead it would be, I guess, something that could probably sustain for a number of years to simply say, hell if I know what's going on, we just sell software. So, very difficult to know when any one of these players can define truth any way they like, and there's billions of dollars floating around in the middle of it to boot. Just interesting. Just thought I would add this to the record. Probably won't be any other such opportunities to add a story like this one.
From networksradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
That's where we'll leave the Pegasus Project for now. There are, in fact, more installments of the story, and you can find them in the links at the bottom of today's installment when you see today's summary. There are more pieces to this puzzle, and I have a feeling we're going to be hearing a lot more about it in the days to come.